So I'm a I'm gonna dive right into it. So a lot of people believe that America, um, the white people in America, came over to what is now the United States, and they took the land from the Indians. Right? That's been taught in so many different history books, schools, universities, educational platforms for so many years. Right? But when I look at it like this. I look at the world, right? And I look at what happened, what is the culture of the world before there was ever a United States. There has always been factions and groups of people and tribes and different organizations that created themselves as being powerful. And they had certain belief systems and they had certain rules and regulations on how to govern themselves and their people. And they felt that they were powerful. All those groups thought they were powerful, right? And whatever they believed in. And then what happened was, as time went on, they met up with other different groups that thought different from them, believed in different things, and then they had conflict. Some of them had conflict. Some of them created alliances. Like some of them was like saying like, "Oh, I don't, I don't believe that a man should have more than one wife." And this tribe would say, "Yes, they should have only one wife," and that would be a conflict. And then there were some people that were like saying like, I don't care what you do over there. If you want to have one wife, you can have one wife. If I want to have five wives, I can have five wives. How can we coexist in the same environment together without having problems? How can we still help each other? Okay. So as time went on, people migrated from different places. But throughout history, there's always been wars amongst tribes for disagreements, for lack of respect of how somebody else's belief system was. Somebody will go to war with it. Like Christianity, like there's been a lot of wars because of that religion. So when we look at the Indians, now let's get back to the Indians. And we look at the Indians and America came over here. Yeah, the Indians were here before. I don't believe nobody can really pretty dispute that. And I believe a lot of other type of ethnic groups or whatever. Some ethnic groups was here that died out that we may not even know about. But I believe there's people's already here. But those people that were already here were not living in harmony together in love. There were conflicts in what is present day United States before the settlers even got here. Even when the Vikings and shit came over here to United States around in like the year 1000, 1500, 1200, whatever it may be. There's always been people coming back and forth. Being here, living here, probably live, especially on the coastlines. You know what I mean? So there's always been conflict amongst Indian tribes. All those tribes that were in what is present day United States were not all getting together and having fun together. There was alliances and then there were enemies. You know, so when the white man came over here, they looked at this land and they looked at it like, "Damn, nobody's here. I discovered it." But you really didn't discover it. Like there was people already here, but they felt like they discovered it, right? So then they end up having their first interaction with Indians, right? Native Americans, and probably other different tribes that they never seen in their life. They were like, "Oh my God, like who are you? What are you?" So it piqued the interest of the white people that came here, and they learned. They learned the culture and how to survive on the land. The Native Americans taught them that, and white people brought diseases and they brought different things from their homeland where they were migrating from, where they was coming from. They brought them, and the Indians helped them survive and helped them with those different things. And then as time evolved, the United States was wanting to be, all the people who came to the United States were starting to want to form their own government, right, on this land that was presently Native American land, right? So when we say Native American land, do we look at it like it belonged to all Native Americans as a collective group? And I think you can't look at that. I think certain parts of America was owned by certain tribes. Like like there was a part like in the Dakotas. There's like tribes out there, and then there's like where Colorado is, and there's tribes in Colorado. So if tribes from the Dakotas, like just say North Dakota, came down to Colorado, they couldn't just come down to Colorado and do whatever it is that they wanted to do. They had to abide by the rules of the tribes that was in Colorado. So there was a separation. It ain't like every tribe embraced every tribe as one of their own, as in love and harmony. No, they didn't do that. There were certain regions, which is present day United States, that was inhabited by certain Native Americans. They were there. They were living there. That was their shit. If another tribe come over there, you couldn't come over there doing, like I said, you couldn't come over to do what you want to do. If you needed something or whatever, they'd probably barter and trade with you, but they wasn't like friends and homies like that. Some of them were and some of them wasn't. And a lot of them wasn't. There were so many different tribes in what is now America back in them days. Like when we look at the 1500s, 1600s, right now, even before, there was so many of them. There's probably so many that we can't even count, and so many that we don't even know about. So when I look at the white man coming over here, the white man is looking at it like, shit, I need me a country. And they started working with the Indians, and then at some point, they started negotiating with the Indians, right? So there is this myth that white people just came over here and just started killing a whole bunch of Native Americans. I don't believe that. When we do the research on it, they just did not come over here and just start murdering people. You know what I'm saying? What happened was, what they did was the negotiation. What they did was like, say like, let us camp out here, or I'll provide this for you, or let's barter and trade this, that, and that. There was certain agreements that the Indians, the Native American stuff, adhere to. They signed agreements with them. And then now let's be fair. Now there were some groups of white people that probably went out and started killing Native Americans for whatever reason, right? There's probably some, very few of them. I feel like at some point that we get this belief that America stole this land from the Native Americans, and that is not true. What actually really happened, based on my research, is that America went to war. They negotiated and went to war with the Native Americans, just like way back in the day. You had different empires to go to war with another empire. Somebody would say like, man, I want that piece of land over there. I'm willing to negotiate with you for half of it. And if the negotiations don't work out, they can't meet an agreement, they probably go to war. That shit been going on forever. It just happened. It happened. The Indians the Native Americans already understood that, because they were doing the same thing already here in America. They'll negotiate some stuff with another tribe, or they'll go to war with another tribe. If that agreement and stuff couldn't be met, they were already warring with each other. So America came in and negotiated, and then when Native Americans didn't agree with it or whatever, they went to war. And the white settlers at that time got more powerful and stuff, and then they end up pushing Native Americans out of certain places. But then also too, like in this study I got that I was looking at, the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851, and I want to share that with you, right? It says, in 1851, government officials met with Cheyenne, Crow, Blackfeet, Arapaho, Assiniboine, Lakota, and Dakota tribal members at Fort Laramie in Wyoming, just west of what would become Nebraska. Right? And if I'm saying any of those Native American names wrong, I apologize. Approximately 10,000 Native Americans camped and talked with U.S. representatives. The tribes and the government negotiated a treaty that has several main points. 1. The treaty called for peace and friendship among rival tribes. 2. It promised each tribe $50,000 each year for 10 years. 3. In exchange, the treaty recognized the U.S. government's rights to build roads and forts and the rights of immigrants to travel on the overland trail in peace. 4. The treaty drew lines on the map where tribes were allowed to hunt and fish. Later treaties created actual reservations. 5. The treaty allowed the government to withhold the money if the tribes violated the terms of the agreement. The Fort Laramie Treaty paved the way for the U.S. to allow tribes the right to govern themselves. It also began several decades of treaty negotiations and agreements that eventually transferred almost all of the tribal lands to the U.S. Unfortunately, the peace did not last. In 1854, 8 years before the Homestead Act, some Lakato near Fort Laramie butchered an immigrant's cow they thought was abandoned. Lieutenant John Grattan and 29 soldiers were sent to investigate. Grattan opened fire on the Indian camp. The Indians fought back, killing all of the soldiers. Next year, General William Hardy was ordered to restore peace on the trail. He found a Lakota camp at Blue Water Creek in Garden County and attacked it. Although the camp residents had nothing to do with the Groton slaughter, Hardy troops killed 136 men, women, and children. Although peace was restored, pressure continued to build, and war broke out again in 1863 with attacks on the overland trail travelers. In 1867, the Lakota pushed eastward and attacked the Union Pacific Railroad train in Dawson County, Nebraska. Attempts at peaceful settlements resulted in payments of food, guns, and other goods to the Lakota. In the years after the Homestead Act of 1862, more Europeans moved into Native American territory. The Homestead Act gave free land to settlers who lived on the land for 5 years. In the 1860s and 70s, the United States Army was at war with the Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes. The Pawnee tribe had fought these other tribes for years, and so the Army turned to the Pawnee for help against a common enemy. The Pawnee became scouts. They were very successful in helping protect the railroad as it was being built across Nebraska, and they accompanied several U.S. Army expeditions against the warring Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho. But by the late 1870s, the Pawnee Scouts were disbanded. The U.S. government had removed most of the members of the Pawnee tribe from Nebraska to the Indiana Territory south of Nebraska. There were more conflicts during the early Homestead period with a band of Cheyenne in the Republican River Valley of south central Nebraska. Again, a military expedition was sent out in 1869 to subdue the Cheyenne. The campaign killed 50 warriors. For the immigrants, the threat they felt from Native Americans was probably the greater than the actual history. There was conflict, death, fights, and murder on both sides, but there were also hundreds of treaty negotiations across the continent. These treaties lessened the conflict and, more importantly, transfer legal title for land that the native tribal people had lived and hunted on for centuries to the United States. So when you listen to that, what is that actually telling you? Right? What is it actually telling you? What it's telling me is that America came and negotiated, and there were violations in these agreements. You know, some agreements were violated by the Indians. Some of the agreements were violated by the white settlers. Right? I say on both sides. To be fair, I can't say it's all Indians. I can't say it's all the white settlers. I say it's on both sides. And what happened was when there were violations, there were acts of war on both sides. You know, the Native American tribes would attack the white settlers, and the white settlers would come back and attack them. And then they would try to find some peace. They'd say, okay, let's come up with another agreement. And then that agreement don't work. And then they'll go to war again. And then they go to war so much. So some of the Indian tribes were looking at it like, damn, you know, I have, like they said, the Pawnees, right? The Pawnees was, hope I'm saying that right. The Pawnee tribe were scouts for the American Army, right? They were against the Lakotas. Right, it was against the Sioux and the Cheyenne or whatever like that. I don't know if they was against the Lakota. I say the Sioux and the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe. They was against them, right? So they didn't like that tribe. So they joined forces with America. So we don't even look at the fact that certain Native American tribes joined forces with the United States Army in order to fight other Indian tribes, other Native American tribes. I'm sorry if I keep using the word Indian, if it's disrespectful to any Native American that's listening to this right now. So they was helping each other. They were all fighting for the land. And then in the times of that fighting and going back and forth, you know, there's casualties on both sides and everything. And Native Americans, now this is very important. Native Americans started signing legal documents stating you can have this land for whatever that the United States was offering them. So they signed over the land. You can't tell me America just came over here and slaughtered and took something from somebody when there's history that there were Native American tribes signing treaties and agreements with the United States in order for that land. Now, I know hearing this from me or hearing this piece of history, like a lot of people are gonna fucking go crazy about that shit. They're gonna be mad. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but all I'm saying is, what are we doing? Are we basing history off of emotions? Like a lot of people that didn't live in that era back in the 1800s, they are really, really emotional about what happened. Like people right now, they are really emotional about what happened. Right? You know? And nobody's saying that you don't have the right to have emotion. Right? But the thing is, before you go that far, shouldn't you just read the history? Go back and read the history. Look on the other side of it. I just don't feel like the United States just came over and just killed and murdered people like that. No. There is documentation right now that show Native Americans signing treaties and agreements with the United States government for land. They didn't take that land from them like that. They signed agreements. They signed like paperwork. They signed those treaties and everything like that. Those Native American tribes did that. And America did what they're supposed to do. So we have to really, really look at history in a whole different light. Because I was in a relationship with a woman who was Native American, and she was giving me the history, and I was like, trying to talk to her. I have questions, man. See, my thing is I'm always asking questions, right? I'm always asking questions. Because I've personally, by being Black and Dominican, I have been deceived in believing that all white people are bad people. I've been deceived in that. Like I've had a Black Panther background type of upbringing. Like my granny and my aunties and shit like that. Like when I was real little, they was teaching me all a bunch of shit. Black power and Black liberation and all this type of stuff. And the white man is this and that and that. Yeah, I grew up like that, but I never felt that like in my soul. Like when I went to a ghetto school, 37th Street School in Milwaukee. I went to a ghetto school, and then I ended up scoring high on this test. It was like the Iowa Basic Skills Test, some test, whatever. And I ended up scoring high on the test, and then they was going to skip me. If I stayed at that school, they was going to skip me to the 4th grade. And then, but a school called Go to My Ear got hold of my test results because they had some type of program that was helping inner city kids to gain higher education, right? So now looking at that right there on the education side, it's like, why is that program even there if white people hate Black people like that? How is that program there to help? Because it was specifically targeting inner city Black kids and Spanish children. If you were if in those schools then, if you score high on this test, they were trying to place you in a school that can further your education. Like you know what I mean? If you score real high, they want to put you in a school that will even higher than that, so you can continue to learn and continue to be better education wise. There were programs out there that were helping Black children and Spanish children. So I can't believe that all white people are bad like that. I can't believe that. Right. So that's just looking at education. And so this is important because when I was talking to her, I was explaining that to her and stuff, and she was like really emotional, like she was actually an Indian from back in them days. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, let's look at the evidence. Let's go and look at history. Let's go back. Let's go read some stuff. Let's do some research. And I started showing it to her, and she was still trying to be upset. I'm like, look at what they're saying. This is what your own people are saying. You come from this tribe, so this is what your own people did. Look what this is. Show me where they didn't do that. Pull that up somewhere. Let me see some evidence that they didn't sign that treaty. And there's always been conflicts, dude. It's always been conflicts like that. This world has never been in total peace. And the reason why this world is never going to be in total peace is because nobody respects another group's or another tribe's ways of living and can live amongst them and be able to take the power from each individual tribe in order to make it cool for everybody. And you see it everywhere. That's why okay, I'm gonna just give you one example, then I'm done. Look at black people right now. Right? Look at the gang culture. Each gang, there's a gang that's always saying like we're not like that gang. We're not like that gang. Yeah, we maybe got some things similar, but we're different in all these other things. You know what I mean? Different gangs there is in America. That is no different from how many tribes. A gang is nothing but a tribe with the same belief system. That's what a gang is. You got the same belief system. A tribe has the same belief system. Back in them days, the Native Americans had a certain belief system. And them Native Americans fought other Native American tribes. It's the same way black gangs fight other black gangs. They're fighting over belief systems. It's not had nothing to do pretty much with skin color. It's your belief system. Your energy is something that I don't agree with. And I can't live amongst it.